Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today we're going to talk about some of the rulings of fiqh and some of the terminologies that are very important for us to understand as we proceed in this purification module. We'll come across terms like, for example, this action is fardh, or it's sunnah, it's mustahab. So we need to have an understanding of what these actions mean. And today, inshallah, what we're going to deal with is the fardh, what this term actually means in fiqh. But before we start dealing with what actually fardh means, we need to understand what and whom a fardh is an obligation for. For example, an individual must be post-puberty. An individual must be of sound mind, and the message of Islam must have reached them for them to be considered what we call a mukallif, a legally responsible individual, whether female or male. And when they've reached this stage of being past the age of puberty, being sound of mind, and the message of Islam has reached them, then the actions of Islam become a responsibility on them. This individual's termed a mukallif, and now Islam's obligations become a fard upon them. So let's look at this term in a bit more detail. So we know that it means command, and we know that it's a binding action. However, what we must realize is that a fard is established by a firm, decisive text, and that action or that command in the text is not open to interpretation. For example, increase or decrease, or any other kind of interpretation. So therefore, what we understand is that the action has been established by what we call a dalail qati, a firm, decisive proof. For example, let's say the 5 prayers, zakat, hajj, fasting. We all know in Islam that these are fard upon us. And the reason why they're fard is because they are established by the Quran. So being established by the Quran, which is a firm text which is not open to any interpretation. The Quran is termed a dalail qati text. Another example is the recitation of the Quran in Salah. Now that is established by what we call mutawatir sunnah. That the ruling in the hadith has been reported by so many people, so many Sahaba and further generations after them, that it's inconceivable that they would have gathered on a lie. And so therefore this is also termed a dalail qati text. It's a firm, decisive text. So we have 2 texts in Islam that give us this fard ruling, and they are dalail qati text, the Quran, and the mutawatir sunnah. Now what we're going to move on to now is the impact of fard upon an individual. What are the rulings? So it's compulsory to act upon a fard. For example, we all know it's compulsory to pray, to fast, to give zakat, and to do hajj once in a lifetime. And if one does these actions, then an individual is rewarded. However, if they are neglected or abandoned, it can lead to Allah's punishment. Now the third is, if an individual disputes these fara'id, or clearly states he or she doesn't believe in them, that can lead to disbelief. The reason being is that these actions are established by a Dala'il al-Qati text, and disbelief in them leads to disbelief overall. Now, the fourth thing to realize is that if an act which is deemed to be fard is omitted, then that action is unfulfilled and it is invalid. For example, in wudu, which we'll come to in future tutorials, if let's say the washing of the hands is left out, or the wiping of the head is left out, which are fard, then the wudu is invalid. So just to recap, this term is a very important term, fard, and it is only fard on the mukallif, and the mukallif is the individual that is responsible in the eyes of the Sharia for its injunctions. And we've told you that and mentioned that responsibility comes after puberty. An individual has to be sound mind, and the message of Islam has reached them, and it applies equally to both females and males. And the fard is established by a text which is Dala'il al-Qati, and we have two of them, the Quran and the Mutawatir Sunnah, and we've dealt with some of the rulings and four of the most important ones with the fard. So inshallah, it's very important to understand this, and we'll deal with some of the other terminologies in a future tutorial.